Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. It is Thursday. That means it's time for my best bets video. I'm going to give you my 5 picks against the spread or overs and unders this week. My 5 picks that I've got, not doing great so far this year. I've got to improve. I'm going to try and get after it this week. I have 5 plays that I like the most, that I think are good plays. 4 of them are going to be against the spread. One of them is the total that I'm picking against. We're going to go over every one of those in a minute. I'm going to talk about the fantasy ramifications for those and why I like the side that I like. Here's really the thing. I'm not a sports bettor. I do this video because I think it's important for me to try and flex different muscles throughout every single week of NFL. I did this last year for the first time. I'm doing this for the second season this year in 2019. And I'm going to do this every single week going up to the playoffs, 17 straight weeks, so I can establish a record and have you guys have the receipts to look back at so I can't fudge it, right? We've had people in the past who have logged their stuff on an app and then they go back and they change this or they change how many units they played. I'm not doing any of that stuff. These are just 5 picks. You want to look at them in terms of units? Everyone's a 1 unit bet. Everything is straight up above the table. You get to see the cards before the hand is over, and then we can look back on Mondays on the recap stream and recap video and see how I did against the spread for the entire year. And I'm hoping to get back to the place where I was last year, where I was essentially 3-2 on average every single week, which isn't great, but it ain't bad either. So thank you guys for joining once again. If you would be so kind, please drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notifications bell, because I put out a ton of content on YouTube and I don't want you guys to miss any video that I put out. So thank you once again for joining, and let's go right to the picks. First one we got here, Ravens against the Steelers. Ravens are having an issue because their defensive tackle has been missing a few games and they're getting plowed on the ground, which is something that they've normally been able to stop. This is a divisional contest. These teams know each other very well. The Steelers are running a very complicated offense now, considering that Mason Rudolph has taken over for Ben Roethlisberger, and they ran Jalen Samuels at Wildcat this week, and using those tap passes, those little catch and release passes, giving him a fantasy upside that we have not seen from a running back for a long time, especially since these are not being run as jet sweeps. So we don't know how much Wildcat they're going to continue running down the road. We don't know when they're going to run it. We don't know how many snaps Jalen Samuels is going to get. We do know that Samuels was used heavily in the passing game this week, which is usually how you want to attack these Baltimore Ravens. I do believe that Mason Rudolph can push the ball downfield, more so than he's being allowed to yet. I think that they're using the Wildcat to draw in safeties, and it could be a little bit of a rope-a-dope to try and convince opposing defensive coordinators, give them one more thing to think about, so it'll open up players like Juju Smith-Schuster, who's their most talented offensive player. It opens up somebody like James Conner coming across on those jet sweeps when Jalen Samuels is the quarterback. On the other side of the field, the Baltimore Ravens have one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league in Lamar Jackson. Great for fantasy purposes, but is going to have ups and downs when it comes to his performance in games, as far as winning games. Now, winning games on the road is tough. Winning conference games on the road, even tougher. The Steelers do have the ability to put a ton of pressure on an opposing quarterback, as we saw last Monday night. I'm going to take the 3.5 points here for the Steelers, as they're home dogs by 3.5. Obviously, the Ravens a very tough team, but I think the Steelers can provide enough of a problem for them in the passing game, and if Williams sits out once again, should be able to move the ball on the ground as well, enough so to cover this 3.5 points. So give me the Steelers here by plus 3.5. Second game, 0 wins and 1 tie through 8 total games played by these two. This is a great game for DFS purposes. There is value here. There's injuries that have opened up even more value in this game. We have a really fast-paced game with two teams that want to play quickly. This is a great game for DFS purposes. Auden Tate is a great value. David Johnson's going to carry heavy ownership this week in GPPs. Andy Dalton, you have the flowchart play if you really want to go with Tyler Eifert as a tournament dart throw. I'm fine with that. Tyler Boyd, Larry Fitzgerald. There's a ton of options in this game for fantasy. In a real life standpoint, when we're worried about the spread, I don't care about who can do this and who can do that. I care about the fact that the Bengals are at home against a rookie quarterback with an offensive line that can't keep defenses off of him. They're allowing way too much pressure. I think there's a great possibility that this Bengals defense gets 3 to 5 sacks in this game. There is definitely the possibility of a turnover turning into a touchdown here and giving them an easy score as well. Christian Kirk could possibly miss this game. They've signed Pharaoh Cooper, who was cut by the Rams and then cut again by another team and then signed by the Cardinals to play that very important slot role. The Cardinals team right now is a mess, as Rich Rebar deemed it. Instead of the air raid offense, it's the horizontal raid offenses. They're not really pushing the ball downfield one bit. And that's something that I really think that they need to do. The Bengals are 3.5 points favorites in this one. I think that they cover the spread in this game. Give me the Bengals. I'll lay the 3.5 points here, and we'll just move on, as I don't think the Cardinals, with the injuries that they've sustained, as much as I like Kyler Murray and as much as I like a lot of the other players that they have and the values for DFS purposes, not really where I want to look for to win a football game right now. Give me the Bengals. I'll lay the points. Buccaneers traveling to New Orleans to play against the Saints. A lot has been made about how Teddy Bridgewater is not Drew Brees, and he's not. You're not going to hear any counter argument from me there. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he is exactly as good as Drew Brees and Drew Brees is washed and he's old. No, Drew Brees is great. He's an all-timer. He still has the ability to challenge downfield, although he was not challenging downfield a lot in this offense last season. He was not challenging downfield a lot in the first game and a half when he played this season. And the Buccaneers, you're not going to be able to run the ball against them very effectively, but you can pass it. Michael Thomas still very viable. Teddy Bridgewater will take a couple of shots downfield against this secondary. They do have one of the most dynamic passing backs in the league in Alvin Kamara, who they some weeks remember he's on their team and some weeks they don't. I'm going to place my bet on the Saints remembering that Alvin Kamara is on their team, that Michael Thomas is going to stay Michael Thomas. In fantasy purposes, the number 6 wide receiver thus far, even though 2.5 of his games have been played with Teddy Bridgewater, and everybody's saying how Teddy Bridgewater is holding Michael Thomas down. He really isn't. In fact, he's got a higher ADOT with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback than he had through 1.5 games with Drew Brees. 0.4 more than last year. So he was a low ADOT guy to begin with. For those of you who don't know, ADOT is average depth of target, how far down the field a quarterback is throwing the ball to his receiver. So the change in quarterback really hasn't affected Michael Thomas. I think that he's going to march up and down the field, or the Saints offense is going to march up and down the field against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that I don't think has very much chance to stop them. And the fact that the Saints front seven is good enough to put pressure on this really bad offensive line for the Buccaneers. They got their win last week against the Rams. I think that they crash back to earth this week on the road against the Saints. So I'm laying 3.5 there. Give me the Saints minus 3.5. The Broncos are a mess, and they lost one of their best defensive linemen. They still have a couple of really good defensive pieces in Von Miller. They still have Chris Harris, who's going to be shadowing, I assume, Keenan Allen, whether he's in the slot or outside. They've been using him moving around the offense, or moving around on the opposing team's best offensive player on the outside. I don't think that that's going to change this week, but there's just too many weapons on this Chargers offense. Inman is now injured. The other receivers are coming back. You still have you have Melvin Gordon III coming back. You still have Austin Eckler. Keenan Allen is not going to get shut out in this offense, and Phillip Rivers is way better in my estimation. You know, by my calculations over here, I have him being much better quarterback at this point in his career than Joe Flacco. Give me the Chargers minus 6.5 at home against the Broncos. I just don't think that the Broncos can travel well in this game going up against the Chargers in Los Angeles. Now, it always does make me nervous laying points with the Chargers because they find a way to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory, at least against the spread, seemingly more often than most other teams. But I think that this is a game that the Chargers win by double digits and win pretty handily. So I'm hoping that there's no last-second touchdown, no bad beat by the Broncos to bring this back. I think the Chargers win this one easily. I'll lay the 6.5 there. Final game. The Chiefs at home are a different defense than they are on the road. The Colts like to play really slow. They don't have very many options. Marlon Mack injured himself last week. He's expected to play this week, but is definitely hobbled. Kobe Brissett, solid, but not spectacular. T.Y. Hilton, injured, don't have many people to throw to. They're going to be running 2 tight end a lot, and they're going to try and slow the game down as much as they can. This total is massive right now at 56.5. I think the Chiefs can score 30 points in this game. I'm not sold that the Colts can score 17 in Kansas City, which has me wanting to take the under 56.5 here. I think that that's a solid play on Sunday night. In island games, you never know what's going to happen, obviously. But with the amount of weapons that are lost from the Colts, the Chiefs would have to carry this game, in my opinion, all by themselves by scoring 50 points for the Colts, or 45 to 50 points for the Colts to even have a chance of carrying their end of the bargain to push this game over the total at 56.5. I'm going to take the under here and move on to my eliminator pick. I got my eliminator pick wrong last week, but luckily we're on ESPN and they want you to come back every single week and click. So I'm going to keep picking teams for this eliminator. I would assume that everybody else will as well. So I'm 3-1 going into the year. We still have some people in our group. Let's see, in this group right here, we still have a bunch of people that are 4-0 just essentially by picking against Miami is how it looks here. Baltimore, Patriots, Cowboys, Chargers, Sharp, Creative Outlet, Eggs Any Style, JVM, Raven Matic. Who else picked that way? We have a few other guys that have gone 4-0 but didn't choose that route. So we've got to pick our team for this week. Looking at who the favored picks are this week, the Bears in London, 6%. The Patriots, 12% of the field. We've already used them. The Eagles against the Jets, 34% of the field on them. And the Chiefs going against the Colts are the number 2 most heavily favored team. I'm going to hold off on the Chiefs for this week. I'm going to go with the chalk, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not expecting Darnold to be back here for this game. He's just, it's too big of a risk. There's no reason for the Jets to roll him out there right now with a bye week coming up very soon for them. It makes more sense to hold him out with his recovery from mono. He's been cleared for non-contact practice and to lift weights, but not cleared for contact thus far on Wednesday or Thursday for practices, which to me means there's no way he's going to be cleared for NFL contact by Sunday. Give me the backup quarterbacks going up against the Eagles defense and their front seven. And this Eagles offense, which is tailor-made to tear apart everything that the Jets want to do defensively. I'm going to take the Eagles here, winning handily and easily on the field. So those are my 5 picks. We have the Steelers plus 3.5, the Bengals minus 3.5, the Saints minus 3.5, the Chargers minus 6.5, and the Indy KC under, as well as the Philadelphia Eagles as our survivor pick. So thank you guys for joining. Once again, please drop a like on this video. Let's see how many we can get before kickoff on Sunday. Please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd be so kind, make sure you ring that notifications bell because I don't want you to miss any of the content that I push out about 6 days a week right here on this YouTube channel. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.